it's Lexi. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you all the books that I read in the month of April. So it was actually a really good reading month for me. I ended up reading a total of 6 books, which is actually pretty good for me. I've been on like a reading rampage this past year, so I've been very good. So I actually have a lot of books in here, so let's get started. So the first book that I read was The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Abel, Lavender by Lesley Walton. And for those of you who don't know, this is kind of like a magical realism story about a girl named Ava, who is a girl who's born with wings. And what I didn't know going into this novel is that it kind of follows 3 generations of women in Ava's family, so her grandmother, her mother, and herself. And I don't know, I really had mixed reviews about this. If you want to see kind of like more of how I felt about it, go see kind of my review and discussion. I'll link it down below. But I really liked the writing style. I feel like kind of the prologue was just really beautifully written. But I don't know, I feel like because I built it up so much in my head that it didn't really live up to that expectation. And I don't know, I feel like, I know it's magical reason, but a lot of the stuff in here was just kind of strange, I kind of want to say. Yeah, so I don't know if this has to be like a book that I have to reread again to kind of get it. So I don't know, and I still don't understand what her wings symbolize, like if they're actually real or they're like a metaphor for something. So let me know in the comments below if you think I should give this book another chance. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I saw the potential in it, but I don't know if I just wasn't in kind of like the mood to kind of fully grasp it. So the next book that I read was The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, and this is kind of like a creepy kind of thriller novel. So the beginning of the book follows the story of a woman named Sarah who lives in this town in Vermont, and you kind of get glimpses of it. You don't really know what's really going on, but basically it's kind of, she was brutally murdered, but by people think by her husband, and so like kind of the woods that she kind of lives near everyone assumes is haunted. People think there's like kind of like the, what they're called, sleepers, I think they were called, which are basically people from the dead that kind of come back. So they're kind of like zombies, but not really. But then flash forward to present day, we follow the story of a girl named Ruthie, whose mother kind of disappears, and everything she kind of uncovers, her story kind of intertwines with Sarah's. Yeah, so I'm trying to be vague and kind of, I don't want to spoil anything, so that's why I'm being pretty vague. But overall, this book was really good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really creepy. I think this would be a very good Halloween kind of read to read. So if you're kind of into like these thrillers or kind of like spooky horror-y things, then I highly recommend that you check this one out. It was really good, and it left kind of like on a cliffhanger. I think the only complaint that I have is like the big kind of climax. It kind of built up to it, and then it fast forward to a couple days after the fact. So other than that, though, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So if you're kind of into this genre, then I highly recommend that you check this book out. So the next book that I read was Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys, and this is a historical fiction novel about World War II, and it follows a girl whose family kind of gets like the Lithuania refugee crisis that took place during this time. Like the Russians came and like sent her family to like a work camp and all this. I think I really enjoyed how it kind of focused on something that we don't really talk about, and at least in my history classes. I remember we kind of brushed over it, but we didn't really go into too much detail, and just kind of like the way these people were treated by the Russian is just as bad as what the Nazis did, in my opinion. They're just the general disregard for human lives. And I also really liked how it was told from like a child's perspective of the war, because I feel like a lot of it are just like a lot of what we read in historical fiction are from the adults. So I really like that. However, I think because this book is a YA novel, it kind of like softened what actually happened. Like I feel it kind of brushed over the really bad stuff. Like I'm kind of comparing this to Codename Verity and Rose Under Fire. Although it's a YA novel, it goes pretty in depth and like it's pretty graphic, and I feel like this novel doesn't do that justice to like the horror that these people faced. Yes, it does have its moments, but I feel like it was kind of like leveled down a bit. But overall, it was still a good book despite that. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and it's Definitely not my favorite historical fiction novel, but I think it's still pretty well done. So the next book that I read was Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And this is the first book in her kind of this trilogy, which is kind of like a loosely based Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I was really excited to read this just because I really like Sarah J. Maas's like Fae world, and I like how she kind of incorporated that into this like retelling and how she made this retelling her own. However, I did have some issues. I think Farah, I think that's how you say her name, like she drove me nuts. She kept like they make her up to be like this super smart like girl, like she's been providing for her family for so many years, but once she kind of gets immersed into like this Fae world, she does stupid mistakes. And I'm okay with characters making stupid mistakes, but it's repeatedly, and it's like it's the same outcome every time. That was annoying. And I did find kind of the romance between Tamlin and her to be kind of just, I don't know, like he was very moody, and I know it's because like there is like a curse on him, but he couldn't really admit what was really going on. But I don't know, like I did find it to be kind of not a healthy relationship, and it was just, I don't know, but I'm still intrigued to kind of continue on because the last like quarter of the book was really, really good, and it kind of picked up. You can kind of see the direction that this series will be going into. So I will be continuing on with this series. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So we'll see if it kind of picks up, because I know I had the same kind of issues with the Throne of Glass, like the first book, but then after the second one, it kind of found its footing and it really took off from there. So hopefully this will be the same. So these last 2 books are part of the Cousins O'Dyer trilogy by Nora Roberts, and I read Dark Witch back in March, and so I ended up finishing the last 2 books in the trilogy. So the first book being Shadow Spell and Blood Magic. And so Shadow Spell covers, like I really liked it. I didn't realize going into it that each book tells is told from the perspective of one of the 3. So the first book covered Iona, and this Shadow Spell covers Connor, and then Blood Magic covers Brianna's story. And I really like that. Like, so for those of you who don't know, this is kind of like a adult fantasy series. So basically there was this witch named Sorsha in the 13th century, and she, there was this bad sorcerer at the time, so she transferred her powers to her 3 kids, and she sacrificed herself to kill this sorcerer. But lo and behold, he ends up surviving, so like it's up to like her 3 kids, which are called the Circle, to kill him. So it's been passed down for centuries where the descendants have not been able to kind of just defeat this guy. So then now present day, we have kind of like the Circle is kind of reformed, and these people are taking it down. So this one, they're just continuing on with the series. I can't say much about it, but I really liked how we were kind of shown different perspectives, because I especially really loved Blood Magic, because I felt like kind of the dynamics between Brianna and Finn were just really interesting. I really liked it. I did find it to be a little bit repetitive, just because it's like kind of Harry Potter, where you kind of figure out the same kind of storyline throughout, kind of in terms of like they're at school and then there's Voldemort and then they fight. So it was kind of like that, but I really enjoyed it. I know the reviews on Goodreads say like this is Nora Roberts' like worst like thing, like, but I've never read anything of hers, but I really liked it. So if you're kind of looking for kind of more of an adult kind of fantasy that doesn't have a lot of the tropes that we see, then I highly recommend that you check these ones out. They're really good and definitely become one of my favorites. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books, or are there any you think I should check out. So yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.